Welcome, friends, to Tacked Up, the podcast all about beers and video games. I almost forgot how to do the intro. It's been so long. It's episode 329? 328? You're muted, by the way.
It's because I was typing to get the Twitch up on my thing. 328.
328. Perfect.
29.
Perfect.
Those are the ones.
Excellent. I'm here with Aadil.
Me.
Thank you for holding down the fort last week and having the BitRock guys on again for a nice update on their now released game.
Yeah, I don't know if you had a chance to listen to the second episode.
Oh, not the second one yet, no.
Yeah. It was like a regular old Tanked episode. That episode, apologies listeners who are used to our new shorter content, but that's like an hour and 36 minutes by itself.
Perfect. No, it's good.
Yeah.
Good. A whole bumper of episodes last week. Perfect. Let's start off this week as we always do and open up some beers. Aadil, what are you kicking into first?
I've got the Two Chefs Brewing 10 years Decennium Falcon. Double Funky Falcon Pale Ale.
The what Falcon?
Decennium?
Oh.
Decennium? Decennium. Well, that looks like it might be a T.
Not sure. Never heard that word before.
No, just Decennium. It's written much better there. I assume they mean Decennium as in like annum and des, like 10 years.
Yeah.
I've just never heard it before.
No.
Kick into Hoppy Hyperdrive with this 10th anniversary edition pale ale to celebrate a decade of brewing. We did a double take on the beer that started it all, the Funky Falcon. Intensely hoppy with a smooth malty mouthfeel, mild bitterness, vibrant fruity notes, citrus, lemongrass, and kaffir lime for a smashing finish. And then the whole double that on their 10th anniversary, which I won't read the flavor text.
Sure.
They're of course Dutch. I think they're in Amsterdam. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice.
How about you? While I pour this.
I am drinking a couple of Bristol beers this week. The first from Bristol Beer Factory. This is Pils Like These, which is a Pilsner. A Chicha Rome series. #40F6. There is a little bit of flavour text on this. It is, what's the percentage? 4.9%. So I ride into the Euro beer lands. Stop 4, Chicha, the home of Pilsner. Rich in history, Bohemia Pilsner is not to be messed with. Malt sweetness with pure noble hop energy. Get ready for a full-bodied lager. So, when I went round the shop, round the corner from me, they've got loads of different beers in now. It's grown. Their beer selection has grown. Bristol Beer Factory were in there, and this was one I hadn't had out of the range that they had. You know, all of their sort of standard lines were there. But yeah, I thought I'd try this out, and it's kind of been a bit hot, a bit muggy.
Yeah, it's been wet, but not cold.
Yes, it feels like it's kind of getting into lager season. So yeah, I thought I'd start with this.
Oh, there's like no head on that.
No, it dissipated really quickly. It kind of just
like
carbonated
I poured mine
straight off.
Mine still has just a thin layer.
How is yours?
So it's a bit hazy, a bit orange. Clearly, nice and bubbly. It smells like a bit like tangerine, like a sweet citrus.
Okay.
With a nice light malt on top of it, like definitely not oaty, but like nice malty. Really, yeah. So some citrus, some sweetness, and some malts. It's really pleasant to nose. And it's lately I've been having very lightly nosed beers that haven't, like, despite the strength in the taste. This is actually one of the more. It's not like it's strong, but not like in your face. I guess. It's like these light tastes, but they're there. They're not like hiding.
You've had a couple of beers from Two Chefs previously, haven't you, as well? I don't think I've ever had anything from them.
Oh, really? Yeah, they're not bad. I mean, they are definitely like a US UK craft style brewery. that's in the Netherlands, while like we're used to like De Molen or like Brouwer de Ei, and then these sort of more traditional like. Even if they're doing an IPA, they definitely have that sort of Dutch Belgian backbone to them, and Two Chefs is definitely not trying to do that.
Right.
So it's a really interesting Dutch craft brewery for that reason. I'm getting that nice. I think the flavor text mentioned something about silky, but I'm getting that nice, really nice mouthfeel, and yeah, nice malty mouthfeel, and a lingering bitterness that's just a touch piney. I'm still getting those citrusy notes. The sweet is just at the top of my mouth and mostly. So I thought it was just present in the beginning, but that's just because like the maltiness and that like slight pininess like kind of overpowers it, and then as those fade, you notice that like I said, there's that sweetness that lingers, but it's just such a light note of sweetness.
Nice.
This is really delicious.
Good.
They call it a pale ale, but there's a lot going on, and there is this like lovely malty and like this lovely hoppy profile that I'm surprised it's not like this. If someone, given that I've had some really light IPAs this year, if someone said this was an IPA, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense, because it has this nice, very strong hoppy presence, and that bitterness is it lingers, and it has the legs of an IPA rather than just a pale ale, which I don't think I'm off saying, or you usually don't have the longest finishes, let alone like sort of quite a large part of the taste curve is this lingering strong-ish bitterness.
Nice.
It's really good.
Good, perfect.
Way to go, Funky Falcon number 10, or whatever this was called.
The 10th anniversary one. I don't know if it was number 10. Was it? No, I'm not even going to go into jubilees and things. Let's leave that one for another pissed up day. This Pilsner.
I said, which will be soon.
That's very true. Drinking your Bristol beer. It's Bristol Craft Beer Festival this weekend. Come and join us if you've got a ticket for Saturday daytime. Yes, and you've heard this before.
And if you listen to this,
yes,
immediately after release Friday evening.
But hopefully there's going to be some lovely smelling beers like this. This is very nice. Very light. A little bit of citrus. The nose is disappeared a little bit. When I cracked the can, it was quite big, and now it's mellowed out quite nicely. It's it's very, very clear. It's what you kind of would expect from a Pilsner.
I am surprised at how like non-bubbly it looks as a Pilsner.
Well, it was like full of fizz, full of carbonation when I cracked the can and poured it in. But as you'd mentioned, it disappeared really quickly. There was zero head on it after a couple of seconds, and there's not a carbonation from the bottom. There's nothing sort of happening in it, but it's not flat. So it isn't that all the carbonation is
like apple juice.
Yeah, it's not like the carbonation is kind of expelled completely from it. There is still a little bit of a fizz to it. It has a kind of like a what's the word I'm looking for? I'll come back to that bit. You first kind of get a lot of the maltiness. I know it says it's a nice malty Pilsner, but you get that straight away. It's a little bit bready, and you're getting a lot of nice citrus in there, more kind of lemony than anything else. So there's this nice sort of bready, slightly sweet malt, which has this citrus just cutting through it enough that it isn't too sweet. You know, it's not bogged down by the malt, and it's a lighter beer, at least in both sort of ABV, but also in mouthfeel. That I could see this very easily. You know, the malt's making it too heavy, but actually, I think the citrus cuts through it enough that it keeps it nice and light. And as I'm trying to say with the carbonation, there is a touch of kind of dankness in there as well. You know, occasionally when you have like a Pilsner or a Helles or something, and you get that sort of dankness towards the end of the carbonation, once it's kind of started to go on the mouthfeel, that dankness sort of starts to set in, and this is very similar in that. But it's a very short, sharp fizz. It's like, pff, and it hits your mouth and it's gone, and that dankness sets in very, very quickly. You know, cuts through again that malt and that citrus to go. Here's a nice sort of dankness. This is now the kind of the flavour that's running. This is the baseline for everything, and then that maltiness just sits above that. That citrus just sits above that as well. It's very well balanced for what I mean. I wouldn't say it's a simple beer by any means, but there's like 3 things going on with it that work very well together. And I think this, if you're going out for a day of drinking with some friends, this would be a great beer to not just start your kind of session or have one beer for the afternoon. This would be a very easy beer to drink 4 of, get a 4-pack of these, because it doesn't have that carbonation to it. It's not going to bloat you out that little bit and make you feel a little bit heavier.
Right.
This is very, very light, and I think it does very well for that fact.
I've already forgotten the ABV.
Just under 5, I think 4.9.
I think I didn't even tell you mine. I say that because I don't know what it is. Also, I will say this to our friends over across the pond with Bitrock Games. They made a crack about like, oh yeah, it's a like the Two-Hearted Light Ale or Lighthearted Ale by Two-Hearted was it's a 4.5. It's light, but that's for American thing over the Britain. I was like, what? I didn't want to be antagonistic right off the top, but I was like, Chad, like, yeah, I know you guys did your you schooled here, but like, yeah, sure, like camera ales maybe, but like our session strength is 4% or 4.5% here. It's the same. Why are you throwing shade?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to send them over some nice double IPAs.
We can do this.
We can do a beer swap with them. Make them go and get some Pliny for us.
That's not a bad idea, actually. One of them in SoCal.
Yeah. Yes, we shall set up and see if we can get some beers and send them over some beers. I did pick up on that when they said it. Absolutely, I heard it and I screwed my face at like, no, that's not right.
Yeah, I mean, we had some severe technical issues. Otherwise, you would have seen me screwing my face up on the recording and be like, let's just let him continue talking.
Perfect. Let's enjoy these.
Sorry, you were.
No, it's fine. I've finished. I'm going to just sit here and just sup. And we can enjoy these beers and get into a little bit of gaming chat for a week. But before we do jump into gaming chat, Aadil, we have been having some technical issues. How's Windows 11?
It's on my computer. So, I mean, basically what happened was a couple weeks back, like Explorer started to hang a bit, and then you were away, and so I was doing all the streaming. But because it was one of those, I think I didn't do a first look, or maybe I did and it was fine. Basically, I didn't do a first look in the one in the past couple weeks, and so I didn't get to retest everything. But I had an update of my NVIDIA drivers, and then things sort of started to hang. I had some like weird graphical effects. I thought, it was one of those you don't need to restart updates to the driver. So I'm like, I'll just restart it, and I did, and then didn't really think enough about it.
Right.
And then Explorer was hanging a bit, and then everything was fine until I was recording and streaming and Discord calling with Lucy, and then everything froze and shut itself down, and Windows completely killed itself. Like, I tried to Control-Alt-Delete to get to the task manager, and then the screen just went black and stayed black. And then I was like, Lucy, this won't happen. Sorry. We canceled those episodes. And then I tried to replicate it, and things were like groggy. And I was like, oh, maybe the install was just kind of bloated because I did an upgrade. I did the upgrade in like January, so I thought it's been reasonably stable.
Yeah.
And then when I started the stream and I tested it, like a couple hours before Chad and Curtis came on, I just pointed OBS at the test server, hit record, hit stream, didn't have anyone on a call, but I had Discord open and I like had a couple other like, apps open. Like Discord doesn't calls don't take a lot except for network throughput, but that's not going to crash a computer, right? So I didn't think that much of it. And then the exact same thing basically happened with Chad and Curtis. It was like, oh, you're cutting out. Oh, fuck. But the next day, because I was been in the middle of a big clean, because I realized my like pet vacuum, which actually you can see in the background there. The filters were really full, and I didn't know there were two filters. One is like washable, and I hadn't washed it in a long time, but didn't think it'd be that bad. The other one is just like this will slowly degrade, and you have to replace it, and I didn't. So
Right.
I'd done that, and that's one of the reasons I like have taken my room apart and moved some things around, and ended up like my desk is now more in the corner. If for those of you who pay attention to the background. Anyway, part of that reason was to just pull all the dust and cat hair out of the parts of the house that haven't been well vacuumed. Because as soon as I replace both those filters, literally this vacuum is strong enough to pull the shitty carpet off the floorboards. I'm like, oh, it hasn't done this. I can't remember the last time it did this. I don't think it's been vacuuming at all well, and that explains why like I'm a bit coughy and wheezy and like I don't breathe so well. I mean, not like huge, but it's like, oh, I haven't been breathing super great. I've noticed it. So I did all that, and then I realized after the call with Chad and Curtis, I don't remember the last time I checked the inside of my computer.
Oh, okay.
But luckily, I have a like a half. I think it's somewhere between a half horsepower or 3 horsepower. I can't remember. Air blower, plug-in
Nice.
blower. And I took it downstairs to the yard, and I blew a fuck ton of dust out. Like all of the filters in the case were like thin line, but that happens. But I couldn't believe how much dust just kept like dust bunnies had came out of like blowing through the CPU fan and stuff. And I did a quick Google and realized, oh right, my C drive, which is also what I write to for OBS, just so that I don't have to. It'll be quicker because everything's on the same. Right, I don't have to switch drives, and it's an NVMe SSD. It's the fastest thing. Sure, it'll burn through the lifespan of the drive, but I'll put it there, and then I can move it somewhere else if I want to deal with it, like for space wise or edit. I don't need to necessarily edit off of it, but it just makes sense to write to the fastest drive I have. It's under a piece of metal heatsink by design, which is good, but not if perhaps dust has accumulated at places. And I did a Google, and people like the only reason, because I was like thinking about Explorer lagging and stuff when I go to my downloads folders, like, oh, I think this is less Windows's fault than I thought, and it might have actually just been dust getting on the contacts and it running fewer lanes, which explains why when I was doing a bunch of things involving the hard drive and the CPU was a bit taxed, so that's the CPU, because now the Discord call is doing video, which is using the GPU, which is using more PCIe lanes, and suddenly if there's dust on the contacts, it's not going to be running at all 8 lanes or whatever. Oh, if it's not running on all 8 lanes, it can't write 6,000 bit rate. And it was just like, this is really boring maybe, but it's like, oh, I'm pretty sure this is all my fault. And I don't, like, I streamed on Tuesday. I didn't have a Discord call, but like I streamed on Tuesday and it was fine, and I've had the performance of my rig has been great, and I'm just like, oh, this is all my fault because PC master race maintenance is the thing you have to do. Air out your computer, and by that I mean blast it full of air.
I need to do mine as well. It's been a good. It's got to be more than I was going to say 6 months. But it's got to be more than 6 months since I've done it. 9 months.
And this is why what I realized was like there's just so much ambient dust because of the vacuum issue. That's why I brought that up. And like cat hair obviously makes in this room, especially because the cat sleeps in the daytime on the couch and the nighttime on the bed. Like there's just a lot of like I need to be doing this way more on the PC. And I was because it's on the floor because I don't have a lot of it's a big footprint, right? But that just makes it literally suck up all the dust and hair. So also pro tip, if you can always put your PC on a desk. You'd be amazed at how much longer it'll last just because the amount of dust and stuff that goes through, but also the circulation of air when it's raised, like when it's in the regular airflow.
Yeah, I mean, even not necessarily on the desk next to you, even if it's sort of
On a
raised off
plinth
the
or
floor,
something.
just a
Yeah.
little bit, but with that air, not raised on a box, but raised with that airflow
Yeah.
underneath as well, so it can get kind of all around. Absolutely, yeah.
So anyway, that's why that happened.
Nice.
I think I'm pretty sure. Because like I said, there was a precursor of some Explorer lags, and I've not had a single one since.
Good.
And,
Okay.
yeah.
Perfect. So, but move on. What did you play on First Looks?
Oh yeah. I played a really cool game, which I should have brought the description up, but I was distracted by talking about Dust. It wasn't called Dust. It was called Umurangi Generation.
Ah, yes.
It's a first-person photography game set in the retro future. It's set in basically there's an impending crisis, and all the major cities are walled off, and the Nations have like deployed. In the United Nations stations, you see what I did there. United Nations have deployed military and big mechs to defend against this alien invasion. I guess I didn't get that far into. I didn't see aliens or whatever, but basically, yeah, it's a first-person photography game. So the basic premise is you get put in a level, and you'll have 10 minutes to get all these objectives, and they'll be like a picture with 3 lit cigarettes. So some of it'll be like pictures of specific things, and then some of them will be like you need to do it up close, and some of them will be like you need to use this lens, because that's what, as you progress through the game, you unlock lenses and sort of photo editing tools, and then there's bonus bits like finishing on time in the 10 minutes is a bonus. And you'll get more, and every shot you take gives you a couple bucks depending on like the AI. She's saying, "Oh yeah, you've got 2 people in it, so it's a duo, or it's like a moody landscape shot, and you'll get $2 for that." And then every level has like one of the bonus things is like how much money you made. I don't. I think it took me about halfway through, so I did like 1.5, 2 levels before I realized I think the designers want you to take your time on a level, learn it, and then try to get the 10-minute run. Because I was thinking like some of this is just really hard to do in 10 minutes. Also, there's like film canisters lying around, and you're collecting all of them. Not only do they refill your shots because you're shooting with film, like 24 shots, but also you need to collect all of them to hit the bonus objective. And they say that hitting all the bonus objectives unlocks new gear, but at the end of each level I played, I got new gear anyway. It just wasn't clear that it's probably like extra special gear for the bonus stuff, which I wish was a bit better telegraphed, because then I wouldn't have stressed so much.
You never see.
Yeah, exactly, right. So in the very beginning you have a standard like a semi zoom lens, and you take a picture and you have an exposure slider, and your 2 white balances, cold, warm, and green, magenta, and that's it, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you just sort of try and make a decent photo, and like the tutorial's like, look for a Union Jack, and it's like there's a Union Jack on the bottom of a skateboard, and then like a patch on someone's jacket or something like that. So there's different parts in the level that satisfy these things, and like some of them though is like take a picture with 7 birds, and you're like, oh, okay, that's a little more difficult. And kind of that sort of the high number crunching ones really forces you into a certain spot. So so that's the basic mechanic. Is you've got so as soon as you hit right click, I think, to go into like shooting mode. So you WASD with your mouse, and then you go into shooting mode, and then left click will take the picture, and then scroll wheel will be like your zoom, and shift scroll wheel will be your focal plane movement.
Right.
And it's an indie game. It's on Game Pass. That's why I played it, because I figured people would actually be able to pick it up. It's real fun, and if you like photography, it's cool. I have some technical gripes with how they deal with photography, which I'll pause for a bit and just talk about the generic gameplay, because if you aren't a photo nerd, it probably doesn't matter as much. So Yeah, so that's the basic premise. You're trying to hunt to take all these pictures, but also like because one of the bonuses is just get a lot of pictures. You got a lot of money, and each shot gets you money. You also just kind of wander around trying to take cool pictures, and I feel like if I almost want it to be like, here are the objectives, and then when you beat it, you unlock a time trial mode. That would be a clearer way of communicating. Don't rush because 3 minutes left. I've been like, I've been really enjoying wandering about, trying to find cool shots, taking my time, doing whatever, like still tracking the objectives. Like, oh, I see, there's like some candles here, but how do I want to take the picture that involves 15 candles, right?
Hmm.
Pretty sure there's be 15 here. How do I do it? And in 3 minutes, it's like, oh shit, I only have like 3 of the 7 objectives. Now I'm just rushing around and doing the Pokemon Snap thing, which
Yeah.
sucks because like one of the coolest things about this is they're giving you a lot more control. Like you have
Mm.
different lenses, you have focal planes, and as you also unlock different like layers of editing. So like by the end you'll have hue, saturation, I'm assuming some clarity stuff, at least some contrast, the sort of tonal curves, I'm assuming, because those are standard things. Like it really feels like they looked at like Adobe Lightroom's panels and were like, I'll give a toolbar for one of those. Which is great, right? It's really cool, but it just sucked because I felt kind of torn between the gameplay mechanics.
Yeah, it's one thing that I kind of saw as a bit of a negative when I was watching the stream, was that it was timed. Like, here is a shot. I have framed it how I want to, or I'm playing about with framing. Oh, look at this cool shot. Yes, I've got to get it for the objective, but actually this has now turned into a very cool shot, and I really like the composition of it. Now I've got the shot. I'm going to play around with all of these different sliders to do it, but you could spend a minute, 2 minutes just playing around with kind of one shot, getting it right, framing it how you
Yeah.
want, doing all of that editing. But you can't because you have this
So
timer.
it turns out I'm pretty sure it pauses. I found out very at the end of the stream. I was like, I did a quick. I'm pretty sure it pauses
Oh,
when you're in take a camera mode,
okay.
like take a picture mode, which explains why. I mean, it was really like I don't think it's 10 minutes real time in a level because you have this disconnect when you're in
Right.
shooting mode, which explains why like I did like 3 levels, but over 2.5 hours.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure that because I don't think I like quintupled the time on some of them.
Well, I don't think
Um,
you didn't hit any of the 10 minutes, did you?
oh, so the horrible part was on the tutorial I rushed. But because it was a tutorial, I was like, okay, I've done all the things. But actually, what happens is it says you now have to deliver the package, and then a
Mm,
glowing red set of squares sort of appears over one part of the map, and you have to go hit E in that thing. And so I was like, oh, I've got all the objectives and all the bonus ones at like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I did it, and then like I saw the red square and I ran to it. And it's like, oh, you're, and I didn't know what to do. Like, so I didn't realize I had to hit a button, so I missed it by seconds. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, there's no point in me turning it in now. So then I looped back and did more of the objectives in the tutorial for the
yeah.
sake of like the stream. But it did kind of suck that it was just like deliver the package, but that's just a part of like tutorials. Like that's what it's supposed to teach me. Like delivering
Hmm.
the package is going there and putting that. So that was, and oh yeah, and one of the objective, and in each level there'll be like a postcard, and you uh are trying to recreate the shot in the postcard, which I think is a really cool idea. Except it's pretty like the figuring out where the angle you took it at it changes. Like it's not as straightforward as walk over there, take a shot.
Yeah.
But it definitely felt like, well, if you got somewhere close to that shot, you're gonna get the points for it. Where I think that as a bonus should be like, no, you are like very close to making a frame accurate, like including like the amount of zoom, etc. Like I'd
Mm,
love to be able to be like, I'm doing this objective, give me this like thumbnail of the postcard so I don't have to keep hitting escape to get the menu to see it, and then really try and recreate it, because I think that's a really good learning tool to like get more used to the what you can do with the tools, right? Like, oh, make this picture. You're in the right spot, figure it out, but like take your time, like look around. Here's what it looks like. Is the main screen looking like this? No, right? Instead of being like, I'm in picture mode, I hit expose, it says I'm finished, and then I look at the pictures like that's not really like the thing that the postcard looks like. And
hmm.
it's again, I feel like it's so close to being really interesting photographically, and there's these weird bits that are just like like the especially the recognition of goals kind of was the disappointing part for me. So having said this, in the stream I got a little worked up because there was a very confusing. There was one that was like, take a picture with 10 solar panels, and I framed this lovely shot, and it didn't do anything, and I was like, what the hell? And then I saw a guy with a lit cigarette, and he had two companions, but I couldn't see them from my perspective, and I took a picture, and it was like, you took a picture with 3 lit cigarettes, and I was like, the hell I did. I can't see 3 cigarettes. I kind of assumed this was the spot for that, which is one of my gripes. Is like some of it is very much like this is the only, because it's a checklist. If it's small items, they like pepper them through the level so you can get interesting shots and do your own sort of choice. But some of it is like, well, this is like in this 1 square meter spot, you will be standing in order to satisfy the objective, which feels like against the spirit of what the game is like wanting me to do, in the same way the time limit felt.
Yeah.
But anyway, the lit cigarettes were not in my line of sight, but they were in my field of view, right? Like they were in the cone of the game rendering, but I couldn't see them.
Sure.
And I thought I was very confused on why this like fifth shot with 15 solar panels didn't work. But it turns out I was bad at the game because it had an icon next to it indicating the lens it wanted, and I hadn't processed because this was the first level I got a second lens, so I just didn't notice it had the zoom lens on it, basically the telephoto lens, and so I just didn't know. And then like I was winching, and I was like, I'll take my hits. Like this was my mistake. Went back to the spot. Obviously fewer things in my field of view because it's a zoom lens, but there were 10 and took basically the same shot cropped past the objective. And that was on me, but yeah, and I don't know. I think there's nothing you can do around that. That's just like the UI wasn't great.
So that's part of it, isn't it? It's telegraphing some of these things. Like we want you to take it very specifically with this lens, but we've given you this very small icon to tell you that. Like,
well, I think, but the problem is like for the rest of the game, I'll learn that. But I think because it was the first time of having, yeah, maybe making the icon bolder for that first level, or it's like just making it clearer that this is new to your list. But obviously, you don't want it to always yell at people, "Hey, there's a lens." But yeah, something, because it's the first. Again, it's like that onboarding of like they've like done the right moves of we're gonna slowly onboard these like more complicated asks, but not the way they present them. If that makes sense. So yeah, I mean that the other thing that is like, so yeah, basically fun. As soon as I realized that I wasn't screwing up objectives, except for one, which was I had photos of friends, which was it's on every level, and I didn't get it on the tutorial, but I took a picture of my friend the penguin, and the people. There was like, it's a tiny level, and I took pictures of people that like I could tell them. Some people you can tell to pose, some can't. I assume those were my friends, but it didn't do anything. Second level, I was trying to do the time trial, and then I realized I've taken a picture of all the people that like were on that first level, and like most of the people, I still haven't satisfied this requirement, because as you take the picture, it makes a little bling, and then as soon as you get out of choosing your like doing your edits, it'll be like, you've satisfied this requirement. And I just didn't get photo of friends at all, even including like I obviously missed the 10. I was just not paying attention to the 10-minute mark and spending as much time as I could, and I couldn't trip this thing. And I was like, well, now there's no point on the third, like the last level I did, I'm like, there's no point in me trying to get under 10 minutes because I literally don't know how to satisfy that requirement.
Yeah.
And in order to get the bonus gear, I need to satisfy all the bonus stuff in the 10 minutes and all the regular stuff in the 10 minutes, and I literally don't know what the game is asking me for. Photos of friends. And then somehow I managed to get a photo of the friends, and I don't know what it was. I don't know what I did differently. It was very confusing. So that's the, like, it's not a big budget game, and so some of this is like, oh, if the UI is annoying a couple times and then you learn it, it's fine. That's just like a gripe of design. But like some of the stuff is like, I think people could play this and never learn how to photo a friend, and I don't know what part of the game is being locked away because you're not getting this gear, which sounds like it's supposed to be bonus gear, because I'm still getting lenses and developing tools each level. So maybe it's not a big deal, but again, the way it's presented is you get gear when you do all the things, and that just makes it frustrating in the beginning minutes. And it doesn't have to be. Like, I'm pretty sure you could just like fart around, finish the level on your own time, once you do the main things, and then move to the next level and do it really cash, and you would really have fun with the game. But it doesn't onboard you to that being the way forward, or even a way forward, and that's really just like that sucks. Because if you're not like determined, you're just gonna walk away.
Yeah.
Because I didn't hit the 10 minutes, or I don't know how to satisfy this other requirement, even if I miss the 10 minutes. Like I can't do this game, and you're telling me gear is based on doing all these things really quickly. No, what you're not telling me is not all gear is locked this out, right? Locked out this way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So one thing I will say is, it's so strange, but like, as you unlock tools, I don't know what's going on. If like I have a feeling that as you unlock things, things might move around in their menu. So exposure is just a gray. So you take the picture, and then there's like a black bar with sliders on the left third of the screen, and the sliders you've unlocked is how you can edit a photo. And exposure is just the left, right. You're in the middle, and also it always underexposes, which really bothers me. It's like I don't have control of this while I'm in shooting mode, but I'm underexposing by 2 stops every time. This is dumb. But anyway, so I always have to bump that up. It's also just like no matter what, I have to start with moving a slider to the right, always to the right, right? It's just kind of. But then you have your 2 white balances. But this is where I feel like it's so strange to have these very photographic like photo editing app sliders, but they all kind of don't work. It's just strange because they have like cold and warm, which is a standard white balancing, right? You go from cold on the left, warm on the far right, and then they have the other one, green magenta, but the the cold warm is like a slider that goes from bluish to yellowish.
Yeah.
Like the slider itself is sort of a gradient. And then the green magenta one is also a gradient, but the gradient displayed on the slider is the inverse of what it does to the photo.
Oh.
And you're like, how did that happen? And then you unlock a saturation, and it's a hue gradient, so it goes from reds, greens, red, orange, all the way to blue. Like, and you're like, but that's not what saturation does. Saturation boosts all colors. But now you're like, so like if I'm now dragging this thing from orange to blue, and it's getting very red. Like, and if I didn't know what the word meant, I'd be very confused.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if what's happening is they built the menu at the end stage, we had everything in like unlocked, and actually things are moving around on the menu, so hue would have that spot in the final stage. So otherwise, I don't know why they would pick a hue gradient for saturation, because it's very confusing, right? And it's so strange. Like it's a photo game. How can you get the photo tools being communicating very, very poorly? I don't get it. It like really threw me for a loop as soon as I noticed it, because like I do photography on to pay the bills these days, and so I'm used to. I know what these things do. I read the labels, and I just started doing my thing, which was really fun. Really like doing it on stream. I really like the moments of trying to like think through shots and talking about that. I enjoyed that in a game. That's really cool because I got to engage my photography and my video game streamer person. But like I wasn't really paying attention to. Like I was just like, oh, this is the white balance slider. Okay, well it goes from green to magenta. That's fine. And I didn't really notice that it was doing these really weird things visually until I like stopped and looked at the sliders. I'm like, wait, all of this doesn't make sense. Yeah, very strange. And then I don't want to ramble on too much. What I will say is, it's kind of a shame. So the engine is really odd. So I'm sure you've heard of the term depth of field.
Yeah.
When you're talking about photography, basically the idea is when you have like a really fast lens, and like why you get like fancy cameras can take things with shallow depth of field where someone's face is in focus and everything else is blurred out, and you have that separation of foreground and background that looks really pretty. You've got the bokeh and all that, and just like that, that's what portrait mode does. It just blurs out the background to fake that separation on cell phone cameras. How much? So the focal plane is where that where you are choosing where that foreground is, so where that focus is, and it's gonna, you know, roughly we'll just pretend that, let's just say it's like a 6-inch plane that you just move back and forth. That's kind of how this game does it, but actually in real photography, as you extend the focal plane back, it gets wider, etc. You can't, right? But it doesn't matter. But when you are on in real life with a camera, everything, you've got a lens that you slowly rotate, and it linearly moves the focal plane, right? Because you are rotating and you're moving it as much as the lens elements are opening and closing, right? In this game, it does it in jumps.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is fine, except they're kind of big, and so you can be in a spot where you're like, oh, their face is in focus, kind of. I'll just try and refocus it so that I want, like, I don't know, like the back of their head to be more in focus and their eyes. I don't care if the nose is out of focus or vice versa. But instead, I'll just jump 6 inches and be like, no, now they're all the way out of focus. And then you try going back the other way, and like, now they're all out of focus this way. The only spot that is like, I'm not happy with this focus. It's the only one that gets this person in from this position. And it's, again, this is a photography game. And so, like, I get it that it's a game. And so maybe I'm being too particular, but I would have really liked if those, I'm fine with it being jumps because it makes total sense from a tech perspective of not being linear, and it's just easier. And also, if you're not a photographer and you're just trying to play with focus, you probably would like kind of clean moves. But I wish they were a bit smaller.
Okay.
Just because quite often when I was composing shots, it would just be like I said, there's a one click where any part of the person is in focus, and then click in either direction, and they're totally blown out of focus in either direction, and like there's no play there, right? And it's a photography game. You should be able to be like, a part of them is in focus, or just have the feeling that you have that control or choice. So that was a bit disappointing.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I'd probably go back to it, especially because like I want to know. Like, one of the things that sucked about those early levels was I didn't have much control over the shots I took because I didn't have the tools of editing. So even just like having saturation, like I already thought about shots I took in that first level. They're like, oh, it would have been really cool if I had that before. So, and I feel like that's where, if they had better telegraphed the loop, it would be like I said, unlocking time trial or whatever. Then you just like slowly progress the game, doing your own thing, and then be like, oh, actually, I really would like to go back to that previous level because now I have all these tools and I remember that bit. I remember that shot I took, which was cool, but I just couldn't edit it well enough, or it was just kind of blander or flatter than I wanted. Oh, right. I can also gameplay wise justify this because now I'm doing the unlocked time trial mode or whatever. Yeah. And that would have been like, I feel like that's such a stronger way of presenting replay, which Absolutely. Is clearly what they want, because they're like drip feeding you tools that will only make you enjoy the levels more. So yeah, I mean, I like it. It's just not quite there.
Yeah. Do you know when this game released? Is it come out on Game Pass kind of day and date?
Oh,
don't worry if you don't. It was only if you did know. That was all.
It came out May 19th, 2020, but it came out in Game Pass in the past couple months, I think.
Okay, so it's a couple of years old then.
Yeah, so I think this is the version, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. That's good to know.
Yeah. So I think it's a really good Game Pass game because I can't fully recommend it because there's like that clunkiness. Like I couldn't be like, hey, you like taking photos? Like, you'll enjoy taking photos in this game. But I can say, hey, if you like taking photos, try this game out on Game Pass, and you might love it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Nice.
Because it's not, there's just some stuff that might aggravate people, but that's okay if you already have Game Pass. It's worth downloading and trying. Did you have anything to say based on what you watched?
I really dig the aesthetic.
I didn't talk about
the biggest thing. I'm trying to rush us through for time because I know Lucy is waiting in the wings. She's going to join us for the second half of our session for the second episode for this week.
It's very polygonal.
Yes, it's very polygonal. It's almost kind of paper crafty in its sort of like strong lines and the colours that it uses and how it does that. It's very not sparse, but it's almost a little bit kind of similar to something like Paradise Killer, where it's kind of very asset-y. It's kind of like, here is a board. This board is then used 4,000 times through the level. And it feels, again, not sparse, but a little bit kind of, we've not created a city. We have made 4 buildings, and then that is it.
Yeah.
But I dig that kind of like slightly more lo-fi feel to everything.
Yeah. So what I will say is things like I really like the way they've done like the cigarettes, because they cast an orange glow on the face
Nice.
of the person smoking, which when you're in this sort of dingy cyberpunk-ish aesthetic, it tends to be like colder. At least the one level with the smokers, it was like very cold aesthetics, and then it has bloom of orange, and like that's the shot I took of the smoker. First of all, that satisfied the 3 smokers thing. Then I was like, oh, this is dumb. But like the first shot I took of him was just him sort of like having a stretch with a cigarette, and it was really great. But I wanted to do more, and so it's like, because these guys people don't really move unless they're the people you can tell to repose. So I know as soon as I unlock enough tools, I can go back and take that shot again.
Yes.
And edit it in a much cleaner way.
Nice.
Kind of wish it took the shots and dumped them into my screenshots folder.
Yeah.
Because I actually don't know where they are, but I would love. And they're like, you should share these things. I'm like, I want to boot the game up just to find out. And like that's again one of those things where it would be a big win if there was just like a folder in your screenshots folder that was just like Umurangi. Anyway, but yeah, again, I recommend it if you like taking photos. If you enjoy photo modes in games, this I think is a good way to like just focus on that. And I think that's enough. And like you said, the aesthetic is a big win. And I kind of glossed over that. But yeah, I'll stop rambling so we can move on.
Yes, let's finish this episode there. We will roll back around to our beers. I finished mine absolutely ages ago. It was so easy to drink. I'm doing this out of order, but it's on my mind. It stayed the same flavour throughout the whole beer. Nothing was lost the more I drank it. The citrus notes stayed there, cutting through that dankness. Maybe that was the only thing that dropped off slightly, but it was still there. The lovely kind of sweet malty, the bready maltiness that was there as well. All of those things combined to work really well, and it was a great beer kind of throughout. And as I said at the beginning, because of that lack of carbonation, or that lower carbonation, it would be very easy to drink a few of these. And by the time I've got through the beer, I could easily see myself just picking another one of these up very, very quickly. You would just keep, if I had 4, you would just drink and drink and drink and drink, and you'd get through them very, very easily. But that was Pills Like These from Bristol Beer Factory. Aadil, how about you? How's the beer?
It's as good as it was in the beginning, which I really appreciate. Some of the sweetness of the citrus is a bit toned down. But that maltiness, if anything, is developed a bit more. Now the bitterness is less piney, I would say, but it's still there, and I still have that like lemony, slightly limey, but without the tart sort of citrus.
Yeah.
And like the tangerininess, I think I mentioned before, it's kind of faded away, and that's the only thing. It's like my palate kind of got used to the sugar more than everything else, so I think I just, so it just feels a bit fuller, a little bolder as a result, because it's not being sort of bounced off by the sweet, which is great for the end of a beer. I think that's a really good development of the taste curve. Really good. I fully recommend drinking one of these Decennium two something double funkies by two. Double funky Falcon Pale Ale by 2 chefs. Good lord.
Brilliant. So they're the beers. They are one of the games that we have played this week. It's good to get a deep dive into a game as well every now and again.
It's been a while since we've...
Yeah, absolutely. If you would like to tell us about the beers that you've been drinking or the games that you've been playing, you can get us at TackedUpCast on the socials. I'm at @over_47. Aadil is
at the Omniarch.
And you should join us over on the Twitch, Out of Lives Network. Yeah, Out of Lives Network, Out of Lives Net, almost everywhere else, and go to outoflives.net to see the other things that we do. And catch Adil's stream of, I think something went up, Cantana
Cantata, yeah. On the YouTube, the stream of that.
So that has just gone up from his first looks. Umurangi Generation, I imagine, will be up within the coming weeks as well for people to be able to look at. But stick around because we're coming at you with the next episode very, very soon. In which case, if you're on the YouTube or you're on Twitch, you'll see Lucy. Hooray! But for right now, we've been tagged up. Bye-bye.
Bye.
www.outoflives.net